Welcome back to NUICfootball.com. I am your host, Kyle Kampmeyer. Winter go-home season is here, and with that, we have to say goodbye to Orangeville, River Ridge, and Fulton. Each of these teams put up seasons that exceeded expectations and watched them overcome adversity in different ways. They should all be proud of what they accomplished. As we head into the quarterfinals for I-8FA, we still have three teams we expected to be there in Milledgeville, Amboy, and Polo. One of them will be going home after this week as Polo and Milledgeville meet up for the second time this year in the Battle of the Blacktop. Amboy needs to take care of business to await one of them in the semifinals. Leamon and Winslow clocked their way into the second round. Big surprise there. While Forreston and Du-Pec fought hard to earn their wins into round two. One of these teams will be making their last appearance on Saturday as we see another Forreston and Leamon Winslow matchup in the rivalry, the ninth such visit in the playoffs since 2006. Du-Pec will get a second straight week of Big Northern action as they meet up with the legendary Stillman Valley Cardinals. We'll break these games down next.
This NUICfootball.com production is powered by Lemon's Ambulance Service in Lena, Illinois. We always plan for the expected, but sometimes we need to plan for the unexpected. Lemons has been serving Stevenson and Joe Daviess counties since 1869. Call someone you can trust in your time of need. Call Lemon's Ambulance Service. Rose Bowman and the Choice Realty team understand that buying or selling real estate is among the most important financial transactions of your life. They are dedicated to providing personal and thorough service with a sharp focus on their clients' needs. Their licensed staff looks forward to assisting you in any of the following areas: residential, condominiums, new construction, land, farms, commercial, investment, or leasing. Choice Realty is locally owned and operated with offices in Freeport, Galena, and the Galena Territories. So when it's time to buy or sell, give Rose Bowman a call at 630-697-2480.
Polo and Milledgeville meet for the second time this year in Milledgeville as Polo enters this game with an 8-2 record and Milledgeville is 9-1. They last met in week 3 in Polo where Milledgeville won that game 58-22. Last week Polo beat West Prairie 40-16 while Milledgeville took care of Orangeville 56-8 to meet up in the quarterfinals in the 2023 playoffs. This is the first time that these two rivals have met in the playoffs. And what a way to break it out. The game's going to feature star power on both sides of the ball with Brock Soto for Polo and Connor Nye for Milledgeville. One of the things that we really saw be the biggest takeaways in the first matchup was the fact that Milledgeville was able to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, being able to set the tone for the whole game in that aspect as well. And then we watched some guys actually begin to pick up their play and really stand out for the missiles. Micah Tom-Smith had a huge game that night, probably one of the best games we've seen him have. Connor Johnson had a huge game. Obviously, Connor Nye had a big game. We also saw his little brother Spencer Nye get into the game action as well. And then Carter Livingood actually began to really come to the forefront for the Missiles offense that game. Defensively, Milledgeville was very stout on the defensive front, led by Dalton Adamic and Bryce McKenna. And then we watched Connor Nye be able to do some things at linebacker, but really in the defensive back areas, you know, we saw some big plays out of Micah Tom-Smith and Connor Johnson as well. So there was a lot of good things there. On the other side for Polo, you know, at that time we were watching their line just get destroyed. Brock Soto did do a good job in the game. Felt that Polo needed to get other ways to give him the ball, and they were able to do a couple things that looked good. They brought Carter Murdy in at quarterback, so they were able to get some passing options in there while splitting time with him and Brock Soto at that quarterback position. But it became very telltale sign that they utilized Brock Solto in the Wildcat formation, much like they found to be an advantage for them the year before when they went to it. And they continued to do that throughout the course of the game. And ultimately, it led to Milledgeville being able to break the game open. This time around, what Polo will need to do is still find ways to get Brock Solto the ball, but they're going to have to become a little bit more creative in how they do it. They're not going to be able to just try to run the ball out of the Wildcat offense and expect him to be successful. They're going to have to find ways to get him into the flats, get him on crossing routes, something to that degree, while mix it in with Noah Dewey and Dilo Fernandez, trying to give different looks to confuse Milledgeville defensively. So they're picking up and trying to put up on different keys. Obviously, when you're Milledgeville, you're going to continue to want to make your primary focus to shut down Solto because he is one of the best players in the state. So you can't just disregard him. You got to be able to have a plan against that. Milledgeville just needs to stay in control. One of the things that we have noticed is when they get behind, they tend to panic a little bit, as we saw against Amboy. And when they do that, they then make bad decisions, which result in turnovers. And for the Marcos, that's the type of situation you want to put Milledgeville in. Get them in a position where they're behind, and now they have to fight to get ahead because you have a high chance of probably taking them out of what they want to do offensively. Whereas in times like that, I feel that Milledgeville should stick to what they're doing because it does work. They do a very good job of splitting it out. But when you get a little behind, you can't hit that panic button. You got to stay calm. You have to trust the process. Stay in control of what you're doing. And then work harder on defense to get the ball back and then do it over again on offense. And that way you can get back into that lead. Do I think Milledgeville will have a hard time in this game? I don't think it's going to come as easy as it did the first time around. I don't feel that Polo was a 36-point differential team, and I still don't feel that way in this game either. I think that this game will be closer than what it was back then, and being that it is in the playoffs, we have noticed that Polo is a very good team to be able to make adjustments when their backs are against the wall and they have to be able to come up to in big play ability. Taking a look at how these two teams compare to each other, Milledgeville will enter this game as a 10-point favorite. So that definitely says that gap closure of that 36 points I was talking about is probably not going to happen the second time around. I think what Polo needs to do is try to slow the game down, kind of take something that Orangeville did against Polo, and that's use your offense as your defense. The longer you can run play time, play clock, put long drives together, the less time you have for Milledgeville to be on the field offensively. Now, in all honesty, it's cliche, but both teams need to be able to take care of the ball and limit mistakes. One of the things I've noticed hurting Polo in their losses to Milledgeville and Amboy was the penalty situation. You got to be able to limit how many penalties you have, which are mental mistakes. You can't have that. So, provided that they can do those things, like I said, this game's going to be much tighter. I do still feel Milledgeville will win this game. I think that they're well coached. This is definitely the game that Milledgeville needs in order for them to finally break the camel's back and show the state that they're better than just a quarterfinal team, which we've seen out of them each of the last 2 years since they've been in the 8-man game. It's time for Milledgeville to live up to the state ranking and where they've been seen to be at each of the last 2 years, because once the playoffs hit, they've kind of underperformed. Last year, Obviously, it was a hard one. You drew West Central right out of the gates. West Central goes on to win state. It was the second time you had played them. Now you're in the driver's seat where you're playing Polo for the second time after you already routed them the first time. So you got to be ready for anything. And like I said, Coach Alston and his staff do a great job of making sure that the game plan from game 1 to game 2 is going to be different to help them stay in the game longer and provide them opportunities to win. I mean, they haven't won state championships for nothing. They've been there, they've done it, they've experienced it. But one thing they have not done is won a state championship after getting 2 big defeats against them in the regular season. So we'll see how it all translates. My pick is Milledgeville in this one, but I do think it's going to be a much better game than the first time around, and I definitely feel it's still a big game to go watch if you're an 8-man fan. Flanagan Cornell Woodland hits the road to go to Amboy in this quarterfinal matchup as the Falcons enter with an 8-2 record and Amboy enters perfect at 10-0. This is the first time these two schools have met. Last week, FCW won 52-0 over South Beloit, while Amboy got the 54-6 win over Hiawatha to clinch their third straight trip to the quarterfinals in IFA playoff action. We've already seen a lot of things that Amboy can do. They've won big against every team with the exception of Ridgewood. They've gone out and have just annihilated different teams throughout the course of the year. The next closest game besides Ridgewood was to Milledgeville when they won that game 32-20 back in, what was that? It was week 6 they won that game. So outside of that, that was back-to-back weeks. So they came off a 6-point win over Ridgewood. Then they had a 12-point win over Milledgeville. But outside of that, the Clippers have been running on all gears. They just got done taking down Polo 2 weeks ago, 52-6. They're averaging almost 55 points a game right now, and that continues to move on. As like I said, they just won 54-6 here this past week. And what can you argue with? I mean, it's hard to stop what the Clippers are doing. They have Landon Welchu, who's ran for, I believe he's right around 1,300 yards right now. You have Quinn Leffelman in the backfield, who has ran for over 700 yards. Eddie Jones has done a great job facilitating the offense. He's been able to get in on the run game while also being able to get the ball downfield. His primary target being Brennan Blaine. They've connected for quite a bit this year as well. A lot of their pass plays have turned into touchdowns. On the other side of the ball, for the Falcons, you have Peyton Quaintance is their big leader. He's ran for 1,325 yards and 22 touchdowns on the season. They've thrown for 429 yards, 416 of that coming through quarterback Seth Jones. So realistically, you're looking at a team that is going to look to run the ball first, pass the ball second, and the Falcons have had quite a bit of success. They did not make the playoffs a season ago. They had a lot of struggle with a lot of youth. They've been able to bring those players back, build on what they had, hit the weight room hard in the offseason per Coach Reed. And with that, they've seen the fruits of their labor come to fruition. And, taking a look at Kessler Collins as well. He's also over the 1,000-yard mark with 17 touchdowns. So you kind of got that power and speed dynamic there with Quaintance and Collins in the backfield. So it does lead to a little bit more explosion. And really, taking a look at everything, I'd say they're more of maybe 80-20, 90-10 run to pass. So you're going to look at a team that's going to want to run the ball, similar with Amboy, but capable of passing the ball too when they need to. Amboy will look to pass a little bit more, but they definitely want to power the ball between the tackles, or the guards, I should say, with Leamon and Welcho. And then they can get to the outside. They seal off the edge very well. I have not had a chance to see FCW play, but I know that with Quaintance and Collins, they've done an exceptional job of rebounding what they had a season ago to what they have this year, and we continue to see that take place. Seth Jones has thrown 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions on the season. He's completing 47% of his passes for 416 yards. So like I said, expect FCW to run the ball here a lot, and that's where Amboy's going to have to look to shut down the run game. They have to be able to stay home, play their assignment defense, plug the gaps. They can't get caught chasing. Obviously, in 8-man football, you get caught chasing, you're going to leave yourself open for that cutback. That cutback can take the life out of your sails in a hurry, because if all you have to do is make one cutback and beat one person rather than 2, your chances of getting to the end zone are much higher in that instance. For FCW, they're going to have to do a lot of things. This is definitely a team that they have not seen yet, and with that, they have some games that they lost early in the season. They opened up with a 15-point win over West Central, suffered back-to-back losses to St. Thomas More, which was a 3-point loss, and then they lost to MCP 54-40, which we just saw MCP go down in the first round this past week to Pawnee. With that, there's a couple other games in there that kind of make you go, they did get a hard-fought win over Bushnell Prairie City 15-14, of which we just watched Milledgeville completely annihilate BPC 72-12 back in week 9 before we entered the playoffs. So there's a little bit of a comparison there for you, as Amboy took care of Milledgeville by 2 touchdowns. Another good comparison is that BPC also lost to Cambridge the week after they played FCW, and we watched what Cambridge did with losses to both Polo and Amboy. So it gives you a little bit of something to compare these teams to. The challenge is definitely going to be on FCW. They're going to have to be able to stop a dual threat running attack along with a big tight end that can get downfield and be able to get into the pass game. He can be physical. He can be quick off the ball. We've seen him get utilized in the backfield as well, and that player we're talking about obviously is Brennan Blaine. And when you put that mix in with Welcho and Leamon, and then you have Blaine there at the tight end spot, who can also move into the backfield, so they can almost go into like a 8-man style of a wishbone offense. It creates a lot of problems for a lot of teams, especially with Amboy's size up front. With the line that they have. So taking a look at this game, Amboy's going to enter this game as a 4-touchdown favorite. They're 28-point favorites in this game, and that should be a little bit of a concern for FCW. I know that they're probably looking at this as a big opportunity, which it is. It's a great opportunity to come up to Amboy, play in the Harbor, a great place for a football game, great playoff atmosphere in Amboy. And really, Amboy's just a great overall football town. And it should be a lot of excitement. But, it's going to be a big test for the Falcons here as they have the Clippers. My pick in this game to win is Amboy. They are still my favorite to make it back to Monmouth. And I think they will at least run the table here to set up a semifinal matchup with the winner of Polo and Milledgeville to get that rematch to see who actually makes it to Monmouth for state.
This portion of our broadcast is brought to you by Diedrich Epoxy Flooring. Serving northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, Diedrich Epoxy is the source for all of your epoxy needs. Give Diedrich Epoxy Flooring a call today at 815-239-1158 for your free estimate.
Du-Pec got the big win last week, 34-0 over Oregon to improve their record to 8-2, and now they have to hit the road to play another big northern foe in Stillman Valley, who is 5-4 and came up with the upset over Chicago Noble Johnson 21-20 to improve to 6-4. This is the first time these two teams have met. It's the fourth consecutive year that Du-Pec has made it into the second round of the playoffs. Stillman Valley enters with that great resume, having won 5 state titles and a runner-up finish between 1999 to 2013. So we have a historic program against an up-and-coming program, and Du-Pec is that program that is trying to show that they belong in the 3A field, they belong in the 3A conversation. But they still have some areas to improve on. They have yet to make it out of the second round. Here they have an opportunity to do just that. One of the things that we get a lot of feedback on is that, well, Du-Pec needs to go into the Big Northern Conference so that they can play 3A teams on a regular basis. That'll help prepare them for the playoffs. It might, who knows, but we've seen where, a lot of teams within the Big Northern Conference, while the conference is good, it's no different than a lot of conferences where you see the same teams at the top of the conference year in and year out and not much changes. Stillman Valley is one of those teams that tends to find themselves more historically towards the top of the Big Northern Conference and will provide a good challenge for Du-Pec as they look to make their way into this quarterfinals for the first time in their program's young history. Stillman Valley has had some issues throughout the course of the year. Coming into the playoffs with a 5-4 record, they opened up the season with a 2-touchdown loss to Dixon. And then they kind of went on a roll as they knocked off Rock Falls, Rockford Lutheran, and Rockford Christian, all by large scores, posting an average of 49 points per game up. And then they had the stumped loss to North Boone that kind of took everybody by surprise as they were really starting to climb the 3A rankings at that time. And that Week 5 loss to North Boone kind of took the things away. And I believe that was also right around the same time they lost their quarterback for the year. The next week they played Oregon. They got beat by 3 touchdowns there. But then they were able to regroup and get wins over Genoa Kingston, who a lot of people thought could have a potential of making the playoffs. Then they beat Winnebago by 2 touchdowns in a very underwhelming year for the Indians there. And then they met up with their rival Byron in Week 9 and got absolutely torn apart as expected in that Week 9 matchup. One of the things I will say about the Cardinals is they've had to face a lot of adversity this season. So being where they're at right now is a great credit to Coach Lawler and his staff for keeping the Cardinals on pace to where they're at. But one of the concerns is you just played a Chicago public school. Granted, you had to go on the road, but taking a look at things throughout the public league and the first round of the playoffs, the CPL teams are 0-22 in the first round of the playoffs. And only 2 CPL teams have made it into the second round only because they faced other CPL teams to advance to that second round matchup. Noble Johnson is one of those noble schools that does not have a lot of playoff history, nor do they have a lot of success. And you're a program that a lot of people look at with a lot of success. And granted, I know absolutely nothing about Chicago Noble Johnson. I just know that to beat a public league school by a point either Noble Johnson was really good or Stillman Valley performed very bad and are lucky they survived the game. But we'll see how it all translates here this week. Du-Pec is going to come into this game as a big favorite. They are a 4-touchdown favorite in this game and are projected to win this game at the same time. So it'll be interesting to see how that matches up. When you take a look at what each of these games have, Du-Pec is projected to win this game 35-10. So, that's right in that 4-touchdown parameter that we see Du-Pec winning at, and their probability is at 95%. You can't go off of those kinds of numbers, though. You still have to prepare, and you have to get the game put down and win it. And if Du-Pec can come out and control the line of scrimmage, limit their mistakes, if we can see Cooper Hoffman have one of those big games where he can get the ball downfield consistently on a regular basis, see that line pick up some key blocks to help get that run game going and have more ball control, we should see Du-Pec win this game. But one of the things they have to be able to do is they have to be able to start a little bit faster than they did against Oregon. It's only going to get tougher now as games go on. And albeit if you do win this game, whoever wins this game is going to be more than likely facing the team that everybody expects to get to normal, and that's the Byron Tigers in the quarterfinals. But in order to get there, you have to win it first. And, we've seen great play out of Du-Pec with Drew Williams, Jackson Diedrich, since he's been back from injury, getting in there and making some big plays. We've seen Brody Black make some big plays. And, Connor Hughes has started to come on with the run game. Jalen Nowd has been another big guy that we've seen a lot of big plays out of as well. And we need to continue to see those plays made for Du-Pec to continue to have success. I feel that for Stillman, Stillman likes to run the ball. And if Du-Pec can seal off edges and help shut that aspect down and play physical up front, once again, they're going to have to be more physical in this game. And if they can do that, then their ability to bring open their offense, which is a very explosive offense when they're clicking, will help benefit them in this game as well. So, really, to keep it short, I expect Du-Pec to win. This should be a great game. Stillman Valley is an awesome place to watch a football game. I've never been there. I've only seen clips of it on the news monitors. But I have been to their football facilities, and they are very nice. Nice little place sitting back behind the high school there. So should be a great atmosphere in Stillman Valley for the Du-Pec faithful and anybody else who wants to continue to follow the 3A games. Get down to Stillman Valley and watch this one because, like I said, the winner of this game will play the winner of Byron and Piatone, of which that will most likely be Byron as they enter that game as a 5-touchdown favorite over Piatone. So be prepared. It's going to be a fun one. Forreston hits the road to Lena Winslow as the rivalry makes their 9th meeting in the playoffs since 2006. Forreston is 8-2. Lena Winslow is 10-0. This game is going to be played in Lena. Last time these two teams met were just 2 weeks ago in Week 9, where Lena Winslow won 36-8. Last week, Forreston beat Marquette 20-7, and Lena Winslow beat Rockford Lutheran 50-13. Like I said, 9th meeting between these two teams since 2006. Lena Winslow owns the series lead 6-2. The 7 last previous meetings, the winner of this game has gone on to win the state championship. So, a lot of big things on the table here for the winner of this game, as has shown to be the historical data behind these two teams. Everybody knows that these two teams have combined to win 8 of the last 9 state championships as well. So that is something to look at. And since 2010, these two teams have combined to win 9 state titles total. So quite the feat these two teams have put on with each other. Lena Winslow having won 6 titles, Forreston having won 3 titles. And, Lena Winslow is looking for their 4th consecutive state title in their 5th and 6th seasons, and Forreston's trying to look to knock them off. Granted, this is definitely one of those games. I know a lot of the fans are pissed because, man, why do we got to see this game in the second round? I get it. I do. You don't want to see this game in the second round. I myself am an advocate for 1 through 32 seeding, but even through 1 through 32 seeding, there is no guarantee that these two teams would not meet in the second round or quarterfinal round. It's just the luck of the draw, the way the seeds play out. Nothing can keep us from the excitement, though, that these two teams can bring for us in this game. Lena Winslow clearly is the heavy favorite in this game. You're taking a look at how both these teams match up. The probability that Lena Winslow wins is at 94%. They are a 3-touchdown favorite over Forreston. And the projected score is almost similar to what it was the first time around. So there's going to have to be some things that Forreston does to open up the opportunities for them. The first time around, we saw Forreston be able to control the clock in the second quarter. They were able to put a long drive together that eventually stalled out at the 1-yard line. If you ask Forreston fans, they feel that they did score that touchdown, and if they would have potentially got the 2-point conversion had the touchdown been awarded to the Cardinals, we're looking at an 8-8 tie going into halftime, which potentially could change how the game turned out. But it didn't. They still did play a hell of a first half to hold Lena Winslow to 8 points going into halftime with an 8-0 lead. But the second half was all Gage Dunker as he continued to do what we've seen him do all season long. He's going to enter this game with 1,886 yards rushing. He has 29 touchdowns on the year. We're also starting to see explosive plays out of Coburn Lynch, who ran for over 250 yards just a week ago against Rockford Lutheran, while he picked up a touchdown on the ground, and then he picked up a 34-yard touchdown reception through the air as well. And then we've seen other players like Nick Tippett get in there and get some carries to help move this offense down the field as well. So, when you take a look at what the Panthers have done, yes, a lot of things go through Gage Dunker, but there's still other things that you have to be focused on. Otherwise, you're going to have somebody like Nick Tippett or Coburn Lynch just take off on you, and all of a sudden you're giving up almost 600 yards rushing before you know it, which is exactly what happened to Rockford Lutheran last week. They put all their focus on Dunker, and Lynch had a huge day, while Dunker was still able to come up with 190 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, Forreston's going to have a good game plan. Obviously, these two teams know each other very well, haven't seen each other a lot over the past decade, and in the playoffs at that, at the same time. So, it's the eighth. It's the 8th time these two teams have met in the playoffs just since 2010. So there's definitely a lot on the line. We've seen where Forreston is starting to get more utilization out of Owen Mulder. He leads the team in rushing. We're starting to see Micah Nelson get to a more healthy state as he's starting to pick up more yards as well. Caleb Sanders obviously has been a staple in that Forreston offense. And Dane Setterstrom has also started to be another player that can mix in with Mulder at that fullback position and get those tough yards up the middle. One of the things that we have not seen out of Forreston this year is the ability to put a full 4 quarters together. They continue to have some of those struggles. I've talked to different people throughout the course of the season, and of course it sounds like it's the same old thing every time we talk about the Cardinals. They left 2 touchdowns on the field here, 2 touchdowns on the field there, and last week against Marquette, they did it once again. We watched them have some deep drives into the red zone that were turned away, and when you're going up against a team like Leamon Winslow, you cannot allow that to happen. You have to be able to convert those drives into points. You have to make it happen. And another thing that we have not seen out of the Cardinals this year is the ability to get outside. They do a great job getting to the edge, but being able to turn that corner, we have not seen the team speed out of the Cardinals that we're used to seeing from them. To be able to get that speed to the outside and then either A, make a cutback, or B, just cut the corner and head upfield. They definitely have had more success running the dive up the middle, the trap, the belly. They've been having more success just hitting in between the tackles where it's much more quick hitting. When they tend to slow down the gameplay and they're not getting those quick hitting runs, that's where they seem to run into a little bit of trouble. One of the things I don't see happening is a complete overhaul and game change of their game plan in total. Everybody keeps reverting back to 2018 when Leamon Winslow was the large favorite, which they were, and had beaten Forreston by 20 points in the regular season. But in the playoffs, granted it was less than favorable conditions for both teams as it became a mud slop pit in Lena that time. But at the same token, Forreston brought a game plan that was more passing to the flats and letting them make one move and allow themselves to get downfield. They're able to make some noise off of turnovers where they were able to get the ball deep in Leamon Winslow territory, and then they were able to take that momentum and convert that into touchdowns. That allowed them to get up to a 2 touchdown lead in the first half before Leamon Winslow eventually came back to tie it up to go into halftime. And then the second half was just straight up back and forth. Nobody could really move in the mud pit. And then both teams were able to get drives late in the game to score before Forreston was able to take advantage of a special teams miscue that allowed them to score to get that win. The difference between this team is we have not seen that type of capabilities out of the Cardinals in the passing game this year. And with that being said, you have to be able to sustain drives on the ground, chew up the clock, use your offense as a defense, and then you have to be able to convert those drives. That's where I see Forreston having the ability to have success. They're going to have to match the intensity up front, as Leamon Winslow is very sound fundamentally up front and can take over that aspect of the game. The other thing is, yes, you're going to have to stop Gage Dunker. And that's going to be a tall task because, like I said, if you stop him, you still have to worry about the other 2 guys, which, both teams are familiar with needing to key on different people. Both are very disciplined programs that play great, sound, fundamental defense as well. But the team speed favors Leamon Winslow very heavily in this game. the size on the line also heavily favors Lena Winslow as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this game goes. Anything can happen. It's playoff football. We've seen things happen that weren't supposed to happen before. Likewise, like Coach Janicki states, they play better when they're on the road. They like their chances when they go to Lena. They are 7-9 against Lena Winslow in Lena. So, the opportunities to win the game definitely favor the Cardinals more on the road than they do when they're playing at home. Nobody knows why. Maybe it's because they sit on the sidelines all by themselves while all the fans are behind the Lena Winslow bench. Who knows? Whatever it is, they just tend to play better at Rick Aaron Field. So, my pick is going to be Lena Winslow. I've had them as my pick all year long. They're my favorite to win state, and I'm not going to back away from that. But, one of the things, another trend that we've seen over the last 2 years is that the separation of score in the playoff game has been by a wider margin than it was in the first game. In order for that to happen again this time, it would require a running clock to take place, of which this rivalry has only given us one running clock in its history, and that came back in the 2019 game in the regular season. And, a lot of people are thinking this was going to be a running type clock in the regular season. I knew better than to say that because I know what Forreston wants to do, and the ability of trying to get a running clock against two teams that like to control the ball and control the clock. It's very hard to find yourself opportunities to get a lot of points on the board when that happens. So, with that said, while Lena Winslow does enter as a 3-touchdown favorite, this game might be a little bit closer than that, but it's all going to depend on what kind of fight we see out of the Cardinals. And perhaps, they're going to come in like David and shock the world once again. You never know. It's why you play the game. But again, the rivalry meets up. Should be a great game in Lena Winslow. And I expect a lot of people to have their eyes on this one. But my pick is Lena Winslow. All right, that gives you a look at what we have coming up for the playoffs. We have a couple teams left remaining here in both the 8-man game and the 11-man game with 3 teams on each side. And obviously we're going to send one from each field home this week with Forreston and Lena Winslow meeting up and Milledgeville and Polo meeting up. So it's going to be one of those weekends where it's going to be full of excitement and disappointment all in one, because somebody's going to go home this weekend, and nobody wants to go home when your ultimate goal is to be playing for a state championship. Unfortunately, that's the way the cards are drawn out, and that's what makes the playoff football so much fun. So get out to the games, cheer on your teams, and as always, root for the NUIC.